There once was a time when I would write convoluted and detailed introductions in my videos. I'd always try to incorporate a fun history lesson or a joke about the absurd size of the Dahlia's assets. This time though, there is none of that useless stuff. We're just gonna be focusing on the facts, like the fact that they are Shadow of the Colossus tier threats. Anyways, Elation Trailblazer is what you get when you cross an EDM concert and an actual raccoon, and to be honest, it's pretty wicked. It's crazy, the Trailblazer has now become an expert at Taiko, Beat Saber, and TikTok dances. Oh, and they're also the best free-to-play support for Elation. Why is she looking at me like that? My name is Braxophone, and you can call me Brax. Let's talk about Elation Trailblazer. Yeah, I don't know what I was expecting for this character, but I guess it's on brand. Elation Trailblazer has come to save the day for everyone who skipped Yao Guang, and unfortunately, it's probably most of you. If Yao Guang is the LeBron James of Elation, Trailblazer is basically Kevin Durant. And if you don't know sports, I don't really either, I just asked my buddy for a good comparison. Anyways, I'll be calling them many things like Kevin Durant, but also Elation Trailblazer and EMC, not to be confused with Best Girl, EMT. Probably the best part about Elation Trailblazer is that they're given for free, and they do what Yao Guang does for every Elation team. EMC isn't quite as good as Yao Guang, but they're a great enabler of Elation skills with their ultimate, which will instantly force an ally's Elation skill to activate, considering a fixed 20 punchline points. This, however, doesn't give 20 certified banger because it's not AHA actually moving, it's just an Elation skill activation. The wording on this is literally everything, and if you don't have at least a 4th grade reading level, it's really easy to miss. Elation Trailblazer works well with Super Wolf because Super Wolf's passive that gives her ult charge on her Elation skill counts punchline from the Elation skill and not from AHA instance. So the TLDR is Elation Trailblazer is special and not like the other girls. Anyways, because you don't get the 20 certified banger from the Elation skill considering 20 punchline, EMC does give 10 certified banger, and with E1 will give an additional 2 certified banger to all allies for each skill MC used before ulting, up to 3. So the max you can get is 16 from MC's ult at E1. Anyways, that was a bit of a tangent, but on their ult, it also grants 5 punchline on use, increases the ally's crit damage by 50% for 3 turns at ult level 10, and dispels crowd control debuffs. The Elation parts of this ultimate can only happen if the ally has an Elation skill though, and if they don't, it'll just grant the crit damage and advance their action by 50% instead. Basically, in a non-Elation team, they're a worse Remembrance Trailblazer, and in an Elation team, they're an engine that runs the entire thing. With one of their passives, they get some more great bonuses, like gaining a skill point for the team after ulting, and increasing their crit rate by 15%. Also, the crit passive is called Screw It, We Ball, because if cursing was allowed in this game, Silver Wolf wouldn't be allowed to play. Unfortunately though, their ult does cost 160 energy, which is very steep, and for that reason, you'll want to use their skill pretty frequently, which does some damage and gains 20 certified banger. But most importantly, EMC pulls out a double-sided lightsaber with a yellow kyber crystal, meaning that they are not only the one who controls the funny, but they are also a master of balance, neutrality, and vigilance. This actually makes perfect sense to me, and I can't believe they actually paid attention to kyber crystal lore when designing this kit. Going back to the energy bit though, their talent helps significantly because it gives EMC a fixed 10 more energy every time they attack, and this includes their Elation skill, meaning you may only need to skill 3 times per ultimate on average if you're running an energy regen rope for their skill. EMC also gets 3 bonus punchline every time they attack, and this also applies to their Elation skill. Since their Elation ID is low, they often move first when in AHA instance, and the punchline gained from it will boost the damage of the following characters in an AHA instant. Also, their talent converts their skill damage to Elation damage, and it's based. Not only is it based, it's also based on the highest certified banger on the team. I've been writing for like the past 45 minutes, and this character's kit is literally the epitome of, oh, and like you're 7 years old playing Ninja God Swordsman with your friends. It feels like there's always something being added on at the last second. Anyways, as for Elation Trailblazer's Elation skill, it deals lightning Elation damage a bunch of times. That's kind of it. And the 10 energy from the talent, I guess, as well. Also, aside from proccing their talent effects, their basic attack does like literally nothing. They have another 2 passives as well, with one giving EMC 2 certified banger for every ally Elation skill that occurs by their next skill, and the other giving Elation bonus for every 200 points of attack Trailblazer has that exceeds 1000. By 2200 attack, you'll have 60% Elation bonus, which would be pretty significant if it was on another character. But do you know what no other character can do? Yeah, checkmate, idiot. EMC's technique gives your allies a 20 or 30% elation increase for 3 turns. Pretty solid and definitely worth using. Elation Trailblazer's entire kit is a mishmash of a bunch of effects relating to other characters and skills, and I really felt like I was the crazy guy connecting the red strings for a minute. But that's actually not even everything, because we get Eidolons for the EMC for free, and it's worth going over all of them because, well, they're free and everyone's gonna get them. E1 is what I explained earlier, but essentially it's 2 certified banger to every ally for each skill used by Trailblazer, up to 3 when you use their ultimate, so it's a very strong Eidolon. E2 is a big buff because it'll increase your ult targeted allies elation by 12%, which is just a general damage increase for free. E3 is a skill talent and elation skill level up, and E4 is pretty significant as well. Basically, when you threateningly twirl your lightsaber around in your elation skill, enemies become terrified of your abilities and take 10% more damage from everything. It's one of the few alternative ways to buff elation damage for your allies. E5 is an ultimate, basic attack, and elation skill level up, and E6 basically just turns Elation Trailblazer into a live bomb. It grants them 100% crit damage for 3 turns when using their elation skill. And that's about it for Eidolons. All in all, I'm happy with EMC. One might even say I'm elated. They gave us max copies of Kevin Durant for free, and I know people are gonna wanna use him because they skipped LeBron. Luckily though, you don't need LeBron to win, even though he'd be like really helpful, and you should probably pull for him. For talent priority, basically just level their ult, then talent, elation skill, and skill, but honestly, ult is kind of the most important one. Plan Arcadia has been so weird because even though I feel like we're basically at death's door with the big bads, we're also just having the silliest little time. It's like Penacony, except instead of being trapped in a dream state, our characters just watched way too many TikToks and entered a state of psychosis. And speaking of psychosis, we're gonna talk about Relics now. If you're playing Elation Trailblazer without Yao Guang on the team, Diviner of Distant Reach is the perfect set, since it'll grant allies a permanent 10% elation buff when Trailblazer uses their elation skill for the first time in battle. On top of that, the 2-piece will give a speed bonus, and the 4-piece set will give a crit rate buff that's dependent on how much speed the user has. It's basically tailor-made for Yao Guang, but without her, Elation Trailblazer can put it to pretty dang good use. The only issue is it doesn't stack, hence why I'm only recommending it if nobody else has it. If you're already running the LeBron of Elation, you could always opt to run something like the 4-piece Eagle of Twilight line set with a ton of speed on it, with the goal of getting as many actions as possible by putting your action forward by 25% every time you ult. There's also a use case for Sacerdos when you're on a team with characters like Superwolf or an unnamed character that may or may not exist in the next 3 weeks. You'll just have to stay tuned to find out. If you don't have those, you can mix 2-piece speed sets to go as fast as possible, which is also pretty good. As for planar ornaments, I personally like Sprightly Von Walk for the extra energy regen and immediate action forward that allows for EMC's ult to come up sooner. With that said, Punk Lord is pretty solid too, just for personal damage, and if you're playing Sparksy, you can put her on the far left of your team and use Lushaka for extra energy on EMC and attack on Sparksy. Now, as for the main stats, you'll want a crit rate body, speed boots, an attack orb, and an energy regen rope. The attack orb will help you activate EMC's passive, and elation damage doesn't scale off damage bonus, so attack is gonna be best. For substats though, I'd recommend trying to make them as fast as possible, with speed at least at 161, with the rest going into attack up to your 2200 and crit rate or damage for extra stats. Overall, the setup isn't too complicated, but you do have to get used to dropping any pieces without speed, which can make things a little bit difficult. But you'll thank yourself later for having so many speed pieces anyways, especially on Diviner, since the 2-piece can be used on most supports in the game. Here's a summary of the best setup for Elation Trailblazer, for those of you whose attention spans were destroyed by Aha's flashing rainbow damage numbers. Despite everything they've been through in the past few years, Trailblazer still keeps their head up, and I think it's just because it's so dang empty. There is zero weight to it, a stark reminder that throughout heaven and earth, they alone are the funny one. And the best light cone for them is Yao Guang's light cone, the light cone of LeBron, the LeBright cone. Don't take it from Yao Guang by any means, but if you happen to have an extra, you can give it to Elation MC for the speed bonus and all of the benefits to your team, like crit rate and damage, plus the energy regen bonus. But there are actually some incredibly good free free-to-play light cones for Elation MC, and the one that I recommend is Mushy Shroomi's Adventures, which is a 4-star craftable light cone in the MOC shop. You can fully max it out for free, and it grants 20% elation to you and 10% elation damage taken to enemies at max superimpose. Lastly, for free-to-play players, you could always use Elation Brimmings with Blessings, which is basically perfectly crafted for Elation Trailblazer. At max superimposition, it gives a 40% attack buff, which will help EMC meet their passive requirements, and after using a skill or ultimate on an ally, that ally gets 24% elation for 2 turns, which is a huge buff to be giving your damage dealer. Since it's completely free, you should have no problem getting it, but the crafted Mushy Shroomy is still better at the moment if you're hitting the attack cap on AMC. For comparison in personal and Superwolf team damage, you can refer to this, but honestly, it's not that complicated, and you can always just throw whatever you have on them, which is unlike the team options, which I'll talk about next. Elation. Anyways, what's up guys? This is gonna be a nice and easy team section because there's basically only 3 things you can do with this character. For now, at least. I mean, it'll probably pick up in a little bit, but basically you can play her with Superwolf. Superwolf is going to be probably the biggest and most consistent candidate for Elation Trailblazer at the moment as of their release. And the reason is that Elation Trailblazer is able to instantly give Superwolf her Elation skill that gets her some hidden MMR, but in addition to that, it counts as 20 punchlines, so you do also get the extra 20 hidden MMR for her. So in total, when you ult with Trailblazer at the start of a battle, Superwolf is gonna get 35 hidden MMR. But if you play them both together, you're getting a ton of hidden MMR. But Kevin Durant can be played in place of LeBron James in the Superwolf team alongside Sparksy, and this will work out fairly well as well. Again, the main issue is gonna be that Sparksy is not going to get the benefits from Elation Trailblazer the same way that Superwolf is, because you're going to want to ult Superwolf. But this team is a decent free-to-play-ish option where you're gonna be able to get Ho-Ho for free from the companion shop if you choose to, and Elation Trailblazer is free, so it's about 50-50. And no, that phrase was not meant to scar you emotionally. And of course, you can just play her alongside Sparksy and Yao Guang and use her to activate Sparksy's Elation skill for some bonus damage. But overall, there are other supports that can fit this role, so mostly she's just being used for Superwolf at the moment. However, when Evanescia comes out, I would not be surprised at all in the slightest if she was the best support for Evanescia as well. So we'll have to wait and see, but unironically, that's it right now. There's like nothing else. Overall, Elation MC is probably the funniest MC we've had, even though it is the same person, and they do not, in fact, have multiple personalities, at least as far as I know. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe for more, like the Hunt light cone. That's a Hunt light cone reference. I don't think anyone has seen that light cone in 50 years.